to share the story of the biggest superstars the company has ever seen. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Let's jump right in. Conor McGregor was born in 1988 in Crumlin, a tough neighbourhood in Dublin, Ireland. Life wasn't always easy. His family lived modestly, and the streets were rough. But even as a kid, Conor stood out. He loved soccer, but found his true passion at Crumlin Boxing Club, where he first learned how to fight. Boxing gave him focus, confidence, and a way to escape the chaos around him. Still, like most young men in Dublin, he had to find work, and for a while, he trained to become a plumber. Every day was the same. Long hours, dirty jobs, and little reward. But deep down, he knew this wasn't his purpose. That frustration lit a fire inside him. Conor started thinking bigger. He left plumbing behind and chose to chase a wild dream, becoming a world-famous fighter. With barely any money, no clear path, and nothing but belief, he stepped into the world of mixed martial arts. That leap of faith, from scraping by to stepping into the cage, is where the real story begins. When Conor walked away from plumbing, most people thought he was crazy. He had no steady income and was still living at home with his parents. At one point, he was collecting €188 a week in government welfare. But while others saw failure, Conor saw it as fuel. He spent every day training, punching, kicking, grappling, and sharpening his skills at local gyms. He believed so strongly in his dream that he treated every training session like a world title fight. Even without big paydays or media attention, Conor carried himself like a future champion. His confidence wasn't fake. It came from the hours he put in and the vision he held. He began fighting in small Irish events and quickly made a name for himself with flashy knockouts and bold predictions. But it was when he joined Cage Warriors, Europe's top MMA promotion, that things started to change. This was his first real shot at making waves in the fighting world, and he was ready to shake it up. In Cage Warriors, Conor McGregor wasted no time proving he was different. He was fast, sharp, and confident, knocking out opponents with precision and flair. What set him apart wasn't just his skill, but how he carried himself. He spoke like a star long before the world knew his name. In 2012, he made history by becoming the first fighter in Cage Warriors to hold 2 championship belts at the same time, one in the Featherweight division and one in lightweight. That double champion status was a rare feat, and it sent a clear message. Conor was ready for the world stage. Back in the US, UFC President Dana White started hearing the buzz about a loud, talented Irishman with knockout power. When Dana visited Dublin, fans wouldn't stop asking about Conor. It was impossible to ignore. Soon after, Conor got the call he'd been waiting for, an offer to fight in the UFC, the biggest MMA promotion in the world. His dream was finally coming true. But he wasn't just coming to compete. He was coming to take over. In 2013, Conor McGregor made his UFC debut against Marcus Brimage. With millions watching, he showed the world what Ireland already knew. He was something special. He knocked Brimage out in just over a minute, then grabbed the mic and delivered a line that would become legendary. "We're not here to take part. We're here to take over." Overnight, McGregor went from unknown newcomer to rising star. His confidence, style, and Irish charm made him a fan favourite and a marketing dream for the UFC. wasn't satisfied with just winning. He wanted to make history. Fight after fight, he predicted exactly how and when he would finish his opponents. And then he did it. The media began calling him Mystic Mac. His bold words, paired with brutal knockouts, built up massive hype. With each victory, the crowds got louder, and the lights got brighter. Now Conor had his eyes set on one goal, the UFC Featherweight title. Conor's confidence grew with every fight, and so did the spotlight. He started calling the exact round and method he'd win by, and more often than not, he was right. Fans were amazed, and opponents were frustrated. That's when the nickname Mystic Mac was born. But it wasn't magic. It was belief, hard work, and sharp fight IQ. Every time he stepped into the cage, he backed up his words with knockout power and precision. As his wins piled up, so did the pressure. Conor knew that to truly take over, he needed to win gold. The UFC announced he would face Jose Aldo, the long-reigning featherweight champion, in what would become one of the most hyped fights in MMA history. The build-up was intense: world tours, face-offs, and non-stop trash talk. Conor wasn't just trying to beat Aldo physically, he was trying to break him mentally. The stage was set for something unforgettable. While the Aldo fight was still building, Conor headlined a UFC event in his hometown of Dublin, a moment that felt like a full-circle return. The crowd was electric as McGregor stepped into the cage against Diego Brando. With the whole country watching, he delivered a first-round knockout that sent the arena into chaos. It wasn't just a win, it was a message to the world. Ireland had a superstar, and he was ready for more. That night in Dublin proved Conor could carry a city, a country, and soon the sport itself. With his charisma, knockout power, and gift for promotion, he was quickly becoming the face of the UFC. All eyes now turned to the long-awaited showdown with Jose Aldo, a champion who hadn't lost in over a decade. The pressure was on, and Conor wasn't just chasing a belt. He was chasing destiny. The fight against Jose Aldo was more than just a title match. It was a battle of wills. Conor launched a non-stop mental war, mocking Aldo at press conferences, stealing his belt, and getting inside his head. The build-up lasted months and included a world tour that turned into chaos. Tensions were high, and fans couldn't wait to see them settle it in the octagon. When fight night finally arrived at UFC 194, the world held its breath. Then, in just 13 seconds, it was over. Conor landed a single left hand and knocked Aldo out cold, the fastest finish in UFC title fight history. Years of dominance were erased in seconds, and Conor was crowned the new featherweight champion. It wasn't just a win, it was a moment that changed the sport. But even as he stood with the belt, Conor was already thinking ahead. He wanted more, and that meant moving up in weight to chase a second title. After conquering the featherweight division, Conor set his sights on something no UFC fighter had ever done: holding two belts at the same time. He moved up to lightweight and was scheduled to fight Rafael dos Anjos for the title. But just weeks before the fight, Dos Anjos pulled out with an injury. That's when Nate Diaz stepped in on short notice, and everything changed. Conor and Nate faced off at UFC 196, and despite a strong start, McGregor was submitted in the second round. It was his first UFC loss, and it hit hard, but instead of hiding, Conor demanded a rematch. At UFC 202, in one of the most watched fights ever, he went the distance and won by decision. With his confidence restored, Conor returned to his original mission, claiming the lightweight belt and making history as the UFC's first ever double champion. With the Diaz rivalry behind him, Conor was finally ready to chase the lightweight title. At UFC 205, he faced Eddie Alvarez in Madison Square Garden, the UFC's first ever event in New York City. The moment was massive, and Conor didn't disappoint. He put on a masterclass, knocking Alvarez down multiple times before finishing him in the second round. When it was over, McGregor stood in the center of the cage, holding 2 championship belts, one on each shoulder. He made history that night as the first UFC fighter to hold titles in 2 weight classes at the same time. The crowd roared, and Conor delivered another iconic quote. "I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody." It was the peak of his fighting career, but instead of defending his titles, Conor had his eyes on something even bigger: stepping into a boxing ring with Floyd Mayweather. After making UFC history, Conor shocked the world by stepping into a completely different arena: professional boxing. He challenged Floyd Mayweather, one of the greatest boxers of all time, to a fight. Most people thought it was a joke at first, but Conor made it real. The hype was massive. Press tours drew thousands, with both fighters trading insults, suits, and showmanship. The event was billed as the money fight, and it lived up to the name. In August 2017, the 2 finally met in the ring. Conor held his own early, landing some clean shots, but Mayweather's experience took over. In the 10th round, the referee stopped the fight, a TKO win for Floyd. Still, Conor walked away a winner in many ways. He earned over $100 million, became a global sports icon, and proved he could sell out any arena in the world. But while the business side boomed, his fighting future was starting to drift, and the cracks were beginning to show. Fresh off the Mayweather fight, Conor used his fame and fortune to branch out beyond the cage. In 2018, he launched Proper Number 12, his own brand of Irish whiskey. Many doubted it at first, but the drink exploded in popularity, selling out in stores and bars around the world. It wasn't just a side project, it was the start of Conor's business empire. He also launched a fitness program called McGregor Fast and partnered in a fashion line called August McGregor. Conor was no longer just a fighter, he was a global brand. But while his businesses were booming, his fighting career was on hold. Fans began to wonder if he'd ever return to the octagon. When he finally did, it was for one of the most intense and personal rivalries of his career. A showdown with undefeated UFC lightweight champion Khabib Nurmagomedov. The comeback wasn't just about the belt. It was about pride, revenge, and control. Conor's return to the UFC in 2018 set up one of the most heated rivalries in MMA history. He faced Khabib Nurmagomedov, an undefeated wrestler known for dominating opponents. The build-up to the fight was full of drama. From Conor's infamous bus attack in Brooklyn to wild press conferences filled with insults and tension, it felt less like a fight and more like a war. When they finally met at UFC 229, Conor struggled to stop Khabib's pressure and grappling. In the 4th round, he was submitted, but the fight didn't end there. After the final bell, Khabib jumped into the crowd and chaos chaos erupted. The post-fight brawl led to fines, suspensions, and headlines around the world. For the first time, Conor's confidence looked shaken. Fans began to wonder, had the fame, fortune, and distractions taken their toll? The next chapter would test not just his skills, but his identity. After the Khabib fight, Conor's life outside the cage started to make more headlines than his fights. He faced a series of legal issues, public incidents, and bad press, from punching a man in a Dublin pub to being arrested multiple times. Stories of wild nights, lawsuits, and controversy filled the tabloids. The confident, sharp-talking fighter was still there, but now surrounded by chaos and questions. At the same time, Conor seemed distant from the sport that made him famous. He announced retirements on social media, only to return later. Fans were divided. Some believed he had lost his focus, while others hoped he could find his way back. With his businesses still thriving, many wondered if he had anything left to prove in the octagon. But deep down, Conor knew the only way to silence the doubt was to fight again and win. In 2020, Conor made his long-awaited return to the octagon, facing Donald "Cowboy" Cerrone at UFC 246. It was quick and brutal, a 40-second knockout that reminded the world just how dangerous he still was. Fans were fired up again, and it seemed like the comeback was real. Conor spoke about staying active, being focused, and returning to championship form. The energy was different, calmer, more mature, but still confident. But even as he promised a new chapter, injuries and setbacks returned. Talks of title runs faded as time passed. Still, Conor remained one of the biggest names in sports. Whether he fought or not, the world paid attention. Through all the ups and downs, one thing was clear. His impact on MMA and beyond couldn't be denied. As his fighting future grew uncertain, one question remained. What would Conor McGregor's legacy truly be? Conor McGregor's journey is one of the most remarkable in sports history. From a small neighborhood in Dublin to global superstardom, he changed the fight game forever. He became the first UFC fighter to hold 2 belts at once, stepped into the boxing ring with Floyd Mayweather, and built a business empire that extended far beyond the cage. Love him or hate him, no one could ignore him. His confidence, style, and knockout power made him unforgettable. While his record may not be perfect, his influence is. He brought millions of new fans to MMA, opened the door for fighters to think bigger, and proved that belief in yourself can take you anywhere. Even as questions swirl about his fighting future, Conor's legacy is already cemented. He was never just a fighter. He was a movement. And whether he fights again or not, the notorious name will echo in the world of combat sports for years to come. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.